You still live there, but it feels different. And the strange thing was, nothing insisted that it should. I had expected change to be visible, a difference I could recognize, a shift I could explain, a quiet discomfort in the space that wouldn't let me settle. But there wasn't one. Not loudly, not clearly, not in a way that demanded attention. There was no visible disruption, no emotional imbalance, no dramatic change in how things appeared. It was quieter than that. It was gradual. It was internal. It was steady. From the outside, nothing looked unfamiliar. I still moved through the same rooms. I still noticed the same details. I still lived within the same space as usual. Nothing about the environment suggested anything had changed, and yet something inside it had. Not suddenly, not forcefully, just quietly enough to exist. I noticed it in the absence of familiarity, the moment where something once felt natural, the pause where something used to feel known, the space where I once felt completely at ease, and this time, I didn't. That was new. The difference didn't arrive as discomfort. It arrived as the absence of what used to feel certain. I wasn't experiencing the same connection to it anymore. I wasn't recognizing it in the same way. I wasn't moving through it without noticing the shift. And nothing felt unstable. I was still present, still aware, still steady. But I wasn't feeling the same sense of belonging. The space existed without the same meaning. The surroundings remained without the same feeling. The familiarity stayed without the same connection. And nothing collapsed. I could move through an entire day in the same place, unchanged, without feeling exactly as I used to. Nothing required explanation. It was more like distance without leaving, as if something inside the space had shifted slightly without needing to be altered. And the more I noticed that, the more I realized something else. How much I had expected change to come with movement. How often I assumed difference meant something had to be replaced. How I believed that unfamiliarity needed a reason. But this wasn't about leaving. It was about perception. Not strong enough to interrupt me. Not clear enough to define. Just steady enough to remain. I began to notice how subtle it was. A slight difference in how things felt. A quiet distance where there used to be comfort. A small shift in something I couldn't fully name. But nothing demanded attention. And that was the shift. Everything around me stayed the same, but the way I experienced it had softened. I paid attention to how quiet that felt, how stable it remained, how little urgency it created. If someone had asked whether anything had changed, I would have said no, and meant it honestly. That was the surprising part. I had always believed change required movement. That difference would feel disruptive, that something would clearly be missing. But some changes don't remove anything. They simply alter how it feels. I noticed it in repetition, the same rooms, the same objects, the same familiar details. Everything recognizable, yet not identical. I didn't need a clear explanation. I didn't need a specific reason. I didn't need to define what had changed. And nothing felt broken. That awareness changed something. Because once you realize that a place can feel different without changing, you stop looking for visible reasons. I began to see how often I had relied on obvious signs. If something changed, I expected to see it. If something felt different, I expected to understand it. But this wasn't like that. The space around me didn't become unfamiliar. It remained subtle, like something slightly adjusted without needing to be corrected, like a room that stayed the same without feeling the same, like a presence that softened without disappearing. And the more I noticed that softness, the more I accepted it. There was no need to question it, no need to fix it, no need to return it to how it was. It simply remained part of how it felt. And in that steadiness, I found something unexpected. Not discomfort, not restlessness, not disconnection, just awareness. An awareness that didn't need explanation. Everything continued as usual. Time moved forward. Life continued. The world kept its rhythm. And I moved within it. While something quietly felt different, I noticed it in my movements, in the way I paused, in the absence of what once felt automatic. The difference didn't need attention. It didn't need to be fixed. It wasn't disruptive. The structure of everything stayed intact. The routines continued. The ordinary details remained. But something inside me no longer felt the same within it. Not because I avoided it, but because I noticed it. Even simple moments felt different. What once felt familiar now felt slightly distant. What once felt complete now felt slightly altered. The familiarity shifted. I didn't need to understand it to recognize it. I just noticed that something had moved, and that awareness was subtle. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a realization. It was quiet. And because it was quiet, it felt stable. Sometimes I tried to remember how it used to feel, just to see if it would return. But it didn't. Not gone. Not removed. Just changed. I didn't explain it to anyone. There was nothing clear to describe. But I carried that quiet difference with me, through the same rooms and the same hours, aware that not all change is visible. There was nothing to fix, no place to leave, no reason to question it. The shift within the space was not a break. It was simply different, and different does not mean lost. It moved with me in small ways, in how I noticed, in how I paused, in how I experienced familiar things differently. I let that difference exist without trying to return it to what it was. The strange thing was how natural that felt. Everything still looked the same. My surroundings stayed intact. My life still moved forward. Nothing outward transformed. Nothing dramatic unfolded. And yet, something inside me had quietly shifted. Not loudly, not urgently, just steadily. As if something had changed without needing to move, and the absence of movement no longer felt confusing. It felt continuous, like a place that didn't need to change to feel different, like a presence that didn't need to leave to become something else. And once I stopped questioning it, nothing felt unclear, because not everything needs to change to feel different. You still live there, but it feels different.